Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snyder on Sports. I'm your host, Jeff Snyder, and I have a passion for sports that I want to share with all of you. I've really enjoyed doing this podcast for you. Tonight's episode, we're going to be covering the Blake Griffin incident in detail a little bit. I know everyone's heard bits and pieces. Hopefully we can answer some important questions, or at least talk about some important questions to do with that. And, of course, we're going to continue with the saga of LeBron James, Coach Killer. Maybe yes, maybe no. We got some interesting new information I picked up today. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. And then a quick note, we are going to visit the world of the National Hockey League. Got to admit, I'm not the biggest hockey guy in the world, but something I saw tonight on Sports Center really got me going on this. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's start off with Blake Griffin of the Los Angeles Clippers. Immensely talented young man. It seems that a few nights ago at a restaurant, he had an altercation with the assistant equipment manager of the Clippers, one Matthias Testy. I'm not making that name up, Matthias Testy. But I guess things got a little testy between Matthias and Blake. It escalated to a physical level, resulting in Griffin breaking his right hand by repeatedly punching Matthias in the face, both in the restaurant and outside the restaurant. This all happened in Toronto. So everyone's heard about this, I'm sure, and awful lot of questions I want to raise about this. Number one, of course, how the hell did this happen? What really happened anyway? I don't know if we're going to get to the bottom of that one, but we can speculate, and that's what makes it fun, right? Another question is, who exactly wanted us to know about this? And what does this say about Blake Griffin as a person, as a professional? Some follow-up questions to that I think are important to ask too because of this incident. Are the Clippers better off without Blake Griffin on their team? Oh my gosh, heresy. How can I be saying such horrible things? But that's a question that popped into my mind, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And a follow-up to that, if your team, can your team win an NBA championship if Blake Griffin is the best player on your team? Again, these questions, Jeff, come on. You can't be asking these questions. Well, we are asking these questions, and hopefully we can talk about it a little bit and see what's going on there as well. So let's start at the beginning. That's usually a good place to start. We don't have a lot of details. We do know that Blake and Matthias were very close friends. He had been an assistant equipment manager with the Clippers the entire time that Blake has been with the team. They've grown close. In the words of many people surrounding the team, they're very good friends. And really, it's just kind of weird because if you look at Blake Griffin on the court, his behavior normally is he's not a very confrontational player. If someone goes out of their way to attack Blake, he is not going to respond. So what is it? What is it that happened? What was said? What was done leading up to this? Because you got a guy, Blake Griffin, who's about 6'9", probably right about 250, maybe 260. From all reports that I can gather about Matthias Testy, he's about a foot shorter than that. So you got a guy that is a remarkable physical specimen, probably larger than 98% of the male population. And then you got average Joe Matthias Testy. So what is it? What could have made Blake Griffin want to take this to the level, a physical level? It just boggles my mind. I mean, come on. I mean, when you do something like that, you're only going to be viewed one way, and that's as a bully. You are never going to win the popularity contest if you beat the living hell out of someone that's half your size. No matter what they said or did, it's a no-win situation. It's just not going to happen for you. So, and on top of that, Blake, what are you thinking? You broke your hand. You just got through rehabbing an injury. You're going to be coming back after missing, I think, 2 or 3 weeks or a month. And now you bust up your hand and you're out for another 4 to 6 weeks. Well, it's late January. So we're looking at probably the middle of March before this guy's going to play again. And, that's not being a team guy. You are being selfish, in my opinion. You're not thinking about everybody else on that team and how your decisions, how your actions are going to affect them. So, again, we're obviously never going to get the straight scoop on this. But whatever it was that set him off, you have to start thinking, what kind of person is this Blake Griffin really? Is he that much of a bully? Wouldn't that bully mentality have come out before this? It's just amazing that he lives in a very physical world where he has in the game physical confrontations all the time. But he has never taken it to that level where he's going to respond with fisticuffs. But he did with his little buddy Matthias Testi. So what does this tell us about Blake Griffin? Well, obviously something snapped inside that guy. This was obviously a trigger. Maybe there is a deeper root cause, As they say, they were very good friends. So obviously, if you know someone really well, you are going to know exactly what buttons to push in order to get that fire lit. And normally that doesn't happen because you're good friends. You don't want to see that happen. But, maybe insults were traded back and forth. It got a little out of hand, and maybe Matthias Testi went where he shouldn't have gone. Whatever that is, whatever the hot button is on Blake Griffin, it sure sounds like he pushed it because he went nuts on this guy. And what does that tell you? It tells you there's something wrong with Blake Griffin. There's some type of instability emotionally within him that would allow him to unleash on somebody like that. It also says that maybe that carries over into his style of play. Obviously, opponents are going to know, hey, I get this guy mad enough, you're going to take him out of his game. You're going to get inside his head, and he's not going to be able to perform. So, not good for Blake Griffin. And another question. This kind of stuff happens all the time in sports, I think, on a small level. People have disagreements. Maybe it gets a little out of hand. Maybe one guy pokes the other guy in the eye. But most times, I believe, this kind of stuff is kind of swept under the rug or kept, as they say, in-house. We're going to, something happened. We're going to take care of it. Blake Griffin wasn't arrested. There was no police report, anything like that. But you have to ask yourself, who wanted us to know about this? Was it Matthias Testi? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Blake Griffin. Was it someone else who witnessed it? Somebody had an ulterior motive that saw this happen and made sure that the information got leaked because they knew what the reaction would be. The little firestorm that's going on right now around Blake Griffin. Kind of strange, You kind of try to put it in context of, okay, let's say this wasn't the NBA. Let's say this was just a regular work environment. And let's see, maybe you're like, you work for a corporation and you work in the mailroom. And there's this other guy who's a young junior executive, up and coming, But for whatever reason, you on a social level, you interact, you socialize together. I don't know. Maybe you grew up together, or maybe you went to the same college. I don't know. But try to put this in context. If this were to happen at a quote unquote normal job, not the NBA, what would the result have been? I mean, I'm pretty sure that there would have been some human resources involvement in this situation. There would have been perhaps some legal action taken on the part of the person who had taken the beating. Perhaps the person who had administered the beating may had no longer be working for the corporation. But in the world of the NBA, they like to think, well, this is sports. This isn't a business. This is sports. We're here to entertain people. The bottom line is they're a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they should be policed the same way as if this had happened at, I don't know, Facebook or Microsoft or wherever. If you allow your temper to take something to a physical level where you are inflicting physical injury on another employee, you are going to have to answer for that. Now, time will tell whether this is going to happen with Blake Griffin and the Clippers. Some people have even said, well, this is probably going to cost Matthias Testi his job. And I got to ask, why? He's the guy that took the beating. And he's going to get fired for this? I don't know. I hope that's not the case. That's pretty twisted in my opinion. Anyway, today Blake Griffin issued the standard legalese apology, saying how he wants to apologize to his family, friends, fans, the team, blah, blah, blah. The standard issue apology. And I sure hope that's not where it's going to end. Now, they have talked to Doc Rivers about this. In his words, he's deeply disappointed. We'll see how deeply he really is disappointed. Doc Rivers pretty much has the final say in all basketball decisions with the Clippers. You do have a general manager in place, Dave Wohl, but he really is more of an advisory capacity to Doc Rivers. He was an assistant under Doc Rivers in both Orlando and Boston. They have a good relationship, but it isn't going to be Dave Wohl making a decision about what happens to Blake Griffin. It's going to be Doc Rivers. So, in light of that, I think Doc Rivers, you got to ask yourself two questions. Number one, are the Clippers better off without Blake Griffin? Now, I know a lot of people are going, yeah, right. Are they better off? No way. Well, we live in a numbers world. It's a numbers-driven, stat-driven industry in sports. Well, here's a couple of stats for you. Would you believe that not only do the Clippers have a better one-loss record without Blake Griffin, they score more points per game without Blake Griffin, because they've been without him because of this injury he's been rehabbing. So, all right, Blake Griffin, very flashy guy, lots of talent, superstar kind of in the league. But is he one of those guys that he makes himself better, which he has done? He's improved year to year, every year, improving his skills. But is he just that? Is he a guy that makes himself better, or is he a guy that makes his team better? And if you look at these stats, it's really not the case. Like I said, better one-loss record without him, and they score more points per game without him. That was a shocker to me, I got to admit. Maybe the one loss, I thought, yeah, okay, that's possible. But the fact that they score more points per game kind of really lays it out there, because above all else, Blake Griffin isn't in there for his defense. We can all agree on that. He's a passable defensive player at best. He's in there for his offense. And if your team is scoring more points per game without him, what's your purpose, Blake? Why are you here? How are you making your team better? I don't think he is. And then the second question, Doc Rivers, that you have to ask yourself, you're obviously in this to win a championship. Won a championship in Boston. You came to the Clippers, wanted to do the same thing. And the question you got to ask yourself is, if Blake Griffin is recognized as your best player, are you going to be able to win a championship with him? Are you going to be able to win a championship in the NBA with Blake Griffin as your marquee player? Now, apologies to DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul, but really, at this point, I would think Paul is on the downside of his career. DeAndre Jordan is a limited type of player. He's going to give you rebounds. He's going to block some shots. He's going to score around the basket, but he's not their best player. I'm pretty sure if you ask someone who is the Clippers' best player, they would probably say Blake Griffin. So if he's your best player, is that going to be good enough? Is that going to be good enough to lead you to the promised land? Is that going to be good enough to win a championship for the Los Angeles Clippers? I don't know, Doc. He's been in the league now for, I believe this is his sixth year, something like that. And he has noticeably improved his game, but have the Clippers improved? Have you seen a steady improvement in their play, improvement in their won-loss record, and how deep they go in the playoffs? Well, no, we haven't. Blake Griffin, at his best, is a good scorer. Gets a lot of stuff around the basket. Has improved his medium-range game. Not a great defender, and he has a tendency to disappear at times, especially in the playoffs. They wanted to play this whole lob city thing. Well, there's a whole lot more to basketball than, Chris Paul lobbing the ball up and Blake Griffin dunking over somebody. Makes for some great posters, makes for some great video highlights, but it's not going to win you a championship. It's just not. So if you're Doc Rivers, president of basketball operations for the Los Angeles Clippers, the man with the final say on all personnel decisions for the team, what are you thinking right now? What's going to be done with our boy Blake? Our boy Blake, who decided to go freaking nuclear on the equipment manager, who's half his size, and bust his hand up in the process, putting him out for another 4 to 6 weeks minimum, increasingly hurting our chances to win. How much of this are you going to take? And, Doc Rivers is a savvy basketball guy. Let's say he does decide, maybe we need to, as they say, move in a new direction without young Blake. So he starts thinking, okay, what am I going to get for Blake Griffin? And that's another good question. Right now, Blake Griffin is in the 4th year of a 5-year deal. He's due to make something like $18 million this year and like $19 million next year. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2018. So that's a ways off. And I don't know what kind of trade value you're going to get for Blake right now. The right team, you might get some draft picks, a mid-level draft pick. Hard to say. So Doc Rivers is in a tough position here. It's obvious that he's got to do something. He's got to make some kind of statement. Either we're going to suspend him, or farther from that, we're gonna move him. We're gonna trade him. Realistically, I don't think he's going to move him. I don't think Blake Griffin is going to get dealt anywhere. Just 2 reasons, really, because he's Blake Griffin and what he means to the franchise right now from a marketing standpoint, and the fact that they're just not going to get that much back in return for him. It's just not going to happen. So the Clippers, crazy. All those years with Donald Sterling doing dumbass move after dumbass move. And then when Ballmer came in and bought the club, everybody thought, finally, we're going to get a professional organization with the Clippers, and they're going to turn the corner. They're going to become an elite franchise in this league, because Ballmer's just going to throw all kinds of money at this. And he has. But the Clippers are still the Clippers. This is the kind of thing that if you had this described to you and then someone said, you got to guess which team this was, a lot of people are going to say, the Clippers? it's just so like them. It's so bizarre. It's so out of the norm. It's just if it wasn't so sad, you'd laugh about it more. And obviously, I feel bad for the guy Matthias Testi, who was the brunt of this physical assault, and I am really curious to see how this plays out. How is it going to turn out for Blake Griffin? Because right now, if you had a page in the dictionary, the basketball dictionary, for Blake Griffin, what would the definition be? I think the definition would be great physical talent, hard worker, head case. Because obviously something inside of young Blake went snappo, and he went and tuned up a guy half his size. And broke his hand doing it. That's the Clippers part of it. That's the part that makes you know it's the Clippers. Any other team, the guy would have gotten tuned up, but the guy doing the tuning up wouldn't have got hurt. And most likely this would have gotten swept under the rug. I think maybe that is why they had to go public with this thing. Because if it had just been a brawl and, Matthias took a beating and that was it, then we just swept it under the rug. Here's a little extra something in your pay envelope, Matthias. We need you to forget this ever happened. But the minute that Blake Griffin's hand got fractured, that's when we found out about it, because you're not going to be able to cover that up. You're simply not going to. Here he is probably in a cast, and you're going to go, when did that happen? Weren't you injured already? That didn't happen like in practice because you haven't been practicing. So I think I answered my own question when I said who wanted us to know about this. Maybe there wasn't an ulterior motive. Maybe it was a simple fact that he messed up his hand so bad they had to tell us. We were going to ask the questions. Hey, what happened? So that's probably how that went down. So I'll leave it at that. Who knows where this story is leading? Who knows what Doc Rivers is going to decide to do with Blake Griffin? But I'll bet whatever happens, it will be a very Clipper response. Because sad to say, they are still the Clippers, no matter what. All right. The other topic I want to touch on tonight, kind of a update as well. My previous podcast, I had talked about certain superstars in the National Basketball Association that choose to use their influence, their leverage, to influence coaching decisions, coaching changes. And one of the names that I brought up was none other than LeBron James, and how it kind of points to that he had some kind of influence, some kind of decision-making capacity as far as David Blatt leaving and Tyronn Lue taking his spot. And what's really weird about this is this story has more legs than I thought it would. It just keeps going and going, because part of it is they keep vehemently denying that LeBron James had anything to do with it. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Shakespeare, but I know there's a quote goes something like, "He doth protest too much." And what that means is that the more they refute this, the more they deny it, the more you start thinking, man, why do you keep having to deny it? Okay? Just let it go. I think it's because it's the truth, and they just can't get around it. It's just crazy how this is lined up, because there's a correspondent for Yahoo, Adrian Wojnarowski. Sorry, Adrian, if I butcher your name. But back on January 22nd, he reported that LeBron and his agent, Rich Paul, have pushed for Tyronn Lue to be named the head coach since last season. And that kind of fits in with the narrative here. that maybe he wasn't the one that made the decision because they didn't have to ask him how he felt because he'd already told them through his actions, through his body language, through the way he interacted with the coach. So, okay, it's over and done with. Tyronn Lue's the one in the seat now. We'll see what happens. Good luck to him, because you better know one thing. If things keep going south, they're not going to fire LeBron. Just remember that, Tyronn. It's going to be you this time. You know, hopefully, if I were you, my advice would be rent. Don't own right now in Cleveland, because your time there may be shorter than you think. So, I thought, okay, when I talked last night about certain star players exerting their influence, I used LeBron as an example of it happening in Cleveland, and one of the reasons I gave as to why it happened some places and other places it doesn't. A lot of it, I said, depended on the strength of the general manager or the whoever's in charge of basketball operations with that particular team. If there's someone who is new, maybe doesn't have that much experience, this kind of thing happens. But if you have someone in place who is more well-known, well-respected, has a long history in the game, maybe even an icon of the game, that kind of stuff doesn't happen. And one of the examples I had used was Pat Riley in Miami. How maybe this happens in Cleveland, but it sure as hell didn't happen in Miami. Well, today I was reading on Bleacher Report a little interview that had been given by Miami Heat minority owner Renan Katz. I want to make sure I get that name right. Renan Katz, yes. He, in an interview, claimed that LeBron James had wanted to fire head coach Erik Spoelstra, have him fired in Miami. That he wasn't the one that LeBron thought should be calling the shots. Well, according to this report, Heat president Pat Riley at the time got wind of this and scheduled an appointment with LeBron James, basically asked him to come into his office. And at that point, Riley had told him, in no uncertain terms, that no one was going to tell him how to run his organization, that Spoelstra was Riley's guy, and Spoelstra was going to stay in place, and that the possibility of Spoelstra getting fired was not going to happen. And what makes it even more ironic is that this happened, this discussion, this decision happened just before LeBron decided to go back to Cleveland. Wow, what a coincidence. That sounds kind of like little kid throws a tantrum, doesn't get his way. So what does he do? He takes his ball and he goes back to Cleveland, where he knows that he has leverage, where he knows that he can hold that general manager hostage, hold him for ransom, basically, that you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do because I'm the only reason that people are buying tickets. I'm the only reason that people are buying merchandise, and I'm the only reason that people think that this team, Cleveland, has a shot at the title. I think it's pretty hilarious what happened, if it did happen. Now, again, this is all, he said, she said type of stuff, speculation. But when you got a minority owner of the Miami Heat willing to come up with this in an interview, I don't know. There's got to be something to it, I think. And, man, to be a fly on the wall in that office when Pat Riley told LeBron James who was in charge and who wasn't in charge. And it would take someone like Pat Riley with that kind of pedigree. I mean, played in the league as a player, coached those great Lakers Showtime teams with Magic and Worthy and Kareem and all the other guys. Lots of titles there. Had a good run with the New York Knicks. Never won a title, but always in contention. Went to the Heat and, has established a strong organization there over the years. And, man, that would have been something special to see the look on LeBron James' face when Pat Riley set him straight. That would have been worth a lot. I would have paid a lot of money to see that. Just to have him say, you know what? You're a player. You play. I'm the GM. I decide who comes and goes. If you don't like it, you can leave. And that's, I think, what happened. It's pretty coincidental that this little meeting happened between Riley and LeBron. And then all of a sudden, LeBron decides he's going to take his talents back to Cleveland. And so it becomes more and more apparent that LeBron James, as great a player as he is, has kind of overstepped his bounds. And tried to make decisions that weren't really his to make. I was listening to Colin Cowherd today, and he, not specifically relating to LeBron, but basically saying in general, why would any organization listen to a player when it came to personnel decisions? They're not paid to do that. They're paid to be great players. They are not great evaluators of talent. They can't decide these kind of decisions. It's just not what they're meant to do. Everyone has a role. Everyone needs to do their job, and together you can win as an organization. But I got to tell you right now, I don't see this being a happy ending in Cleveland. The more this comes out, the more it becomes known around the league. It's gonna not be good for LeBron. And Tyronn Lue, I know how hard it is to get a head coaching job in the NBA. I know how badly you wanted this, but I don't think it's going to end well for you either, man. Because the Cleveland Cavaliers are broken. They don't have a winning formula. They don't have a winning lineup. And all the coaching in the world is not going to change the fact that you have a group of players and then you have LeBron. And LeBron, for better or worse, believes that he is above it all. He really does. He believes that he is the star and that that's how things should work. And it's not how they work. If you want to win championships, you can be a star player, but you are still part of that team. And right now, LeBron is trying to put himself above the team, and that never, ever works. So, again, similar to the Blake Griffin saga, the ongoing LeBron James coach killer story, we'll see what happens. We'll see who has something to say next. Maybe it'll fade away, but I think the damage has been done for LeBron. I don't think there's any more rings in his future. So that caps that off. And just one other quick thing. I was watching SportsCenter tonight, and I'm not a big hockey guy. Believe me, I don't know if I've ever actually sat through an entire hockey game, but I saw a highlight tonight that really disturbed me. Player on the Calgary Flames, or as they say in Canada, Calgary Flames. I believe his name is Dennis Wiseman. They showed a clip, and he was skating along the edge of the ice near the boards, near the team benches, and one of the referees was probably about 20 feet ahead of him, facing away from him. So this player, Dennis Wiseman, was skating up behind the referee. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he stick-checked this referee right into the boards. I mean, and it happened like right in front of the benches. This wasn't like, hey, no one's going to see this. It was there, plain as day. It was shocking, to be honest with you. And I guess from what I could gather, the NHL has a rule that something like that happens, it's a minimum 20-game suspension for the player. But, I mean, check out SportsCenter, YouTube it, Wiseman hit on referee, whatever. Take a look at it, because it is shocking. It is the cheapest shot I have ever seen a player do to anybody, let alone a referee. Not just another player who might somehow be in the game and ready for it, but this referee, they go to referee a game, they're not expecting that they got to be looking over their shoulder to make sure one of the players isn't cold cocking them from behind. And this, it was just so blatant and so bad. I don't think 20 games comes even close for this. I mean, I don't know the history of this player. I don't know if he's got a history with that referee, but that's just completely inexcusable. That is so far over the line. I, I don't know. Maybe I'm just knee-jerking reaction right here, but I say at least a year's suspension, maybe an out-and-out ban from the game. I mean, he could have really hurt this guy. I mean, he knocked him to the ice. His head bounced off the boards, and luckily those refs have helmets on. I think that probably helped him, and he didn't knock him out, but he railed this guy from the back, when he wasn't looking. Totally blindsided him. Totally cheap shotted this guy. And I hope that the NHL comes down hard on this guy, because you can't allow that. That's just like destroying the game. It's unbelievable. Like I said, check it out for yourself, see what you think. But man, I say they have to slap at least a 1-year suspension on this guy. If not, just telling him that's it, you're done. No more hockey for you. But anyway, we'll see. Like I said, we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how the Blake Griffin story plays out, and we'll see how the coach killing LeBron James sorts out. So another great night in sports, huh? Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care and God bless. And if you like this, like me, send me those comments. I need those comments. Give me some feedback so I know what I'm doing right and wrong, so I can make this better for everybody. And if you like it a lot, you can subscribe to me at Snyder on Sports. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great night.